Are you scared? Well, you shouldn't be, because you're in Bitcoin. And being in Bitcoin is very scary for a multitude of reasons. There are a lot of people that get into Bitcoin and they end up losing money by getting into Bitcoin, despite the fact that over the long term it has only gone up. So that being said, how have people continually kept making the same mistakes in Bitcoin? Is there a grand narrative that ties together a lot of these mistakes? And is there anything that I can impart onto you, me as somebody who has now been through multiple Bitcoin bear markets, some of the most brutal bear markets that you've ever heard of? I survived them, and I'm going to give you tips on how to be one of the people that do survive these bear markets and how you can come out of it buying cheaper Bitcoin and selling at a higher price if that is your goal. My first tip that I want to give everybody that is getting into Bitcoin is to be very careful of leverage. Every time you buy Bitcoin, it is always best to buy Bitcoin with your own money. Every time you go to buy Bitcoin with somebody else's money, you're putting yourself at risk. So even if you're right with Bitcoin, if you take out leverage, if you time it wrong, you could still be wrong about Bitcoin. I've known people that took out long positions. They say it's going to go up, so I'm going to take out like a 50x position, and then it goes down 2%, they lose everything. It sounds crazy, but I've known many, many people where something similar like that has happened to them. Maybe not with 50x positions, also with 5x, 4x, 3x positions. So my main takeaway for this first point is to buy spot Bitcoin with your own money. Avoid leverage, because even if you time it incorrectly, you could lose everything. The second tip that I can give you guys is to ignore daily price movements, because they don't matter. If you are getting into Bitcoin for the right reasons, you got to think about it like Warren Buffett described buying a stock like buying a farm. You don't think about what the price of the farm is day to day. You just own and operate the farm. And Bitcoin is similar, but it's money. So you just want to save your money and understand it for the asset that it is. It's the hardest currency that we've ever had in the world. So you really want to make sure that you focus on what actually matters. And if the only time you should really be thinking about the Bitcoin price is if you're trying to get the most optimized entry position. Other than that, time in the market always will be timing the market. So don't worry about the day-to-day price action. And then for point number 3, it's going to be make sure that you hold your Bitcoin on your own, by yourself. It's your keys. It's not a custodial wallet. And I really recommend at that it should be in a cold wallet. I use personally a couple different cold wallets, but you want to make sure that you hold your own keys. The old saying was, not your keys, not your coins, and that is still relevant today. There's been many people that lost their coins that were not holding them themselves. They had custodial accounts. The most famous one of this is Mt. Gox or FTX. These people held their Bitcoin on both of these exchanges, and they both eventually blew up and failed. Everybody that was not holding the Bitcoin on their own ended up losing everything. Point number 4, in line with point number 2, not to worry about the price, is to always be buying. I have to shout out the Money Guy Show with Brian Preston and Bo Hansen. I think that they have good methods for using your money and doing certain actions with it. I think that they're right about a lot of their different mindsets and methods that they employ. However, I don't think that they're right about Bitcoin specifically. However, if you use their mindset specifically as a Bitcoiner, it would work out well for you. So they tell you always buy the S&P 500. Doesn't matter what it's going to do. Always buy, never sell, always hold. And I really recommend you do the same thing with Bitcoin. Point number 5 is to be sure to use your time effectively. And what I mean by this is I want you to be able to learn about Bitcoin at times where you might be more interested in what the price is doing, what exactly is going on with politics, or what's going on with the World Cup. Spain won the World Cup the other day. I'll mention that. Shout out to Spain. Congratulations on the World Cup win. But you have to focus on being able to learn the most important things when everybody else doesn't want to learn those things. So this would be things like reading the Bitcoin Standard by Saifedean Ammous at times during a bear market. This is a great time to read that book. Bitcoin is for Everyone by Natalie Brunell. I think that could be another book that you could watch. There's a lot of different documentaries on Bitcoin. I am interested in who Satoshi Nakamoto is, so I watch Money Electric on HBO, for example. And I just encourage you to try to learn as much as you can and be a sponge to absorb as much as you can about the content. It's important for you to be able to have that foundation so that you won't be nervous when the price does go down eventually. The real takeaway of what you want to learn, in addition to all that, is why we need Bitcoin, how it works, what's a node, what's a miner, what exactly does a miner do, how do they secure the network, what is proof of stake, what is proof of work, what is a consensus mechanism. These are all questions that you should be able to answer. Point number 6. Point number 6 is an interesting one coming from somebody like me. You have to stop listening to influencers online. Stop it. Every influencer that I've ever listened to about Bitcoin strikes me as a little bit of an idiot. And they are smart in the fact that they found Bitcoin and that they're staying in it. But if you mentioned any Bitcoin content creator to me, I probably think they're stupid for just a plethora of different reasons. If you give me a different content creator, I probably have a different reason for why I think that they're stupid. So you need to not listen to these people. You need to go out and get some real facts about what Bitcoin is, have your own understanding, do your own research. Do not listen to Bitcoin influencers because they tricked a lot of people, for example, into going and believing that Trump was a good thing for crypto and Bitcoin. Spoiler alert, he wasn't. And that's because the influencers in this space are really dumb. Point number 7, you want to have a long-term mindset. You always want to be buying, and it's not buying for selling 4 months from now, 1 year from now, or even 2 years from now. In fact, I recommend that your lowest time frame for Bitcoin should really be at least 5 years. 5 years should be your absolute minimum, but it really should be longer than that. If you're getting into Bitcoin, I think that the best way to get into it is to dollar cost average into it over a long period of time. It would be nice if everybody could have bought the lows, but nobody knows when the lows is. So it's important to just always be buying, have a long-term mindset, and that way you're always building your position. You're never truly underwater because you're still building your position. Point number 8, don't believe everything you read. Many, many times there have been Bitcoin obituaries posted. Many times they've said AI is going to kill Bitcoin. MicroStrategy is going to bring Bitcoin all the way down. Michael Saylor is going to sell all his Bitcoin on the market and he's going to bring it to an end. Basically, you're going to see headlines where they tell you it's over. It's done. You're not going to make any more money in crypto. I saw it when we were underneath 20,000 and FTX fell. I've seen it even after FTX fell. There's been many times where I've gotten posts, Bitcoin is dead, where Bitcoin didn't die and it came back. And I bet you that's going to continue to happen. People will always say Bitcoin is dead when it's not really dead. Point number 9, we do currently live in a fiat world, so it's good to keep a little bit of liquidity in fiat. And I'm not talking a lot of money. I don't mean 3.2 billion like MicroStrategy. You shouldn't dilute your shareholders to have $3.2 billion of US dollars, especially if you do truly believe that Bitcoin is the ultimate asset of the world. So have always a little bit of cash so that you can go day to day through life and not have to worry about selling any Bitcoin for any reason to cover any costs. And my last and final point is that you have to be able to remember why you bought Bitcoin in the first place. It's a very important skill. If you know why and you have true conviction for why you are holding Bitcoin, why you got into it in the first place, the likelihood of you selling drops way, way down. If you think that Bitcoin is just vaporware, but people for some reason are buying it and they're going to make you some money, you probably have sold by now. You were in too much pain. You didn't know what you had, and you're like, I need to stop losing money, so I'm going to sell it. But if you thought to yourself, Bitcoin is the best money in the world, and people are wrong, and I'm going to continue to buy, you'd very likely succeed. At least that's what happened to me, and I want you to succeed too, and that's why I'm giving you all these tips. So I just ran through 10 important tips that I would give anyone for a Bitcoin survival guide. This is my Bitcoin survival guide video, and I hope that you incorporate these tips into your Bitcoin journey as well. Leave me a comment if you are practicing any of these tips. If you like the video and anything I talked about, please subscribe to the channel. This is DeFi Generate, and I understand that being in Bitcoin is scary, and are you scared? You shouldn't be, because you're in Bitcoin and we're here to help you. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.